Good afternoon. Welcome to the I.S.D. Laredo Independent School District Board of Trustees Special Call Meeting. It's Thursday, April 21st, 2022. It's 5:33 in the Amber Yeary Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hector J. Garcia.
I am present.
Mr. Hector J. Noyola.
Here.
Ms. Monica Garcia, I am present. Dr. Minita Ramirez, she's on her way, right?
It's running late.
Mr. Guadalupe Gomez.
Present.
Mr. Ricardo Garza.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Gomez?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Rios?
Good afternoon, everyone. Item number 1, discussion and presentation on the 2022-2023 budget development process. As you all may well know, we will have to adopt our budget sometime in June. So this is part of a little bit of a preview of some of the things that are mandated so that everyone can follow along. Ms. Ayala?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rios.
Thank you, Dr. Rios. Good evening, members of the Board of Trustees. I'll be covering the 2022-2023 budget development process. So board policy has two components. It has the legal and the local. Legal policy is the result of Texas Education Agency rules, federal and state legislation, and case law. Local policy is developed to support legal policy, and it is approved by the Board of Trustees. The state and local fiscal policies related to budget development are the following.
Ms. Ayala, can you move it a little closer because I can barely hear you?
Yes, sir.
There you go.
So the state and local fiscal policies that we follow are the following. CE, legal, which specifies the publication of the proposed budget summary. CE, local, and I'm just summarizing the whole policy. It speaks about budget planning and evaluation are a continuous processes, and also that the capital budget shall be adopted as part of the annual budget process. CEA, local, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent for finance are instructed to develop and submit a balanced budget with input from the site-based decision-making committees and instructional programs for the trustee approval. Also, the district needs to not compromise the long-term financial integrity to achieve short-term benefits. Under CT local, we have to prepare and adopt a multi-year capital plan. Under DC local, new positions, if any, shall be approved by the board when the budget is approved. And also under TEC 42 subchapter C, under the special allotments, we are required to spend a minimum amount of money under each allotment. For example, we have the special ed allotment, we need to spend at least 55%, career and technology allotment at least 55%, the bilingual education allotment spent 55%, and the compensatory education allotment, we need to spend at least 55%. Under both ESSA and ESSER and IDEA, the maintenance of effort requires us to maintain state and local expenditures at a specified level from one fiscal year to the next. The IDEA MOE, which is the maintenance of effort, requires that we must spend at least the same amount of state and local funds to provide services to students with disabilities that we spent in the previous year. We must also comply with the MOE requirement to receive IDEA B funding each fiscal year. If we don't spend that same amount, then we'll lose the federal funding side. Under ESSA, it is 90% of the amount spent the previous year.
Just for the record, Dr. Minita Ramirez is in the building.
5:37.
May I proceed? Thank you. Under comparability of services, this is a fiscal requirement ensuring campuses receive an equitable share of both state and local resources. The excess costs under the IDEA program are those costs of providing special education and related services to students with disabilities over and above the average expenditure in the school district for an elementary or secondary students. A shared service arrangement is a written contract to jointly operate special education programs. As the fiscal agent for the Regional Day School for the Deaf, we must operate in accordance with the procedures developed by the Texas Education Agency. We currently service I.S.D, Hebronville, Webb Consolidated, and Zapata. The steps of the budget development process are the following: the planning phase, the preparation phase, and the evaluation phase. Under the planning phase, we define the mission goals and performance objectives for each campus and department. We develop the comprehensive needs assessment by campuses and departments. We create the budget calendar, the school calendar. We revise staffing formulas. This is generally done by HR, and update special population program guidelines.
Well, and before you leave, I really do want to emphasize that this is really a very important part for our campuses and departments, because they know the number of students that they have, the programs to which these students belong. And so when they start planning the budget, like in allocating, I'm going to give this much money to this particular set of activities, the objectives and the strategies related to those activities then have to be directly aligned to that particular set of formulas, because you have to be equitable. That's one of the things that needs to happen. So I just wanted to emphasize that.
Thank you, Dr. Reyes. Under BQB, we have the planning and decision-making process under both legal and local. And what this is that our school district is required to adopt policy and have administrative procedures to establish a district and campus level planning and decision-making process. This process must involve professional staff of the district, parents, community members in establishing and reviewing the district's and campus's educational plans, goals, performance objectives, and major classroom instructional programs. Allocations are provided to the schools based on membership counts at snapshot to ensure equitable share of both state and local resources. The equitable share of state and local resources is also a fiscal requirement for recipients of Title I, Part A, which are our federal funds. Here we have the budget calendar. The budget calendar provides critical dates for the planning, preparation, submission, review, and adoption of the district budget. We always begin our presentations with a budget calendar.
But before you move away from that, I know that sometimes people get confused when they say CIP and CIP. The capital improvement plan is one thing, the campus improvement plan is another. The campus improvement plan is the actual strategies and activities that are to be funded by the funds that are allocated to each school. So just to make note that every school has a site-based decision-making committee headed by the principal and by other different committees within that school to be able to determine how monies are going to be spent according to function and to purpose.
And real quick, just so the public knows, I know the beginning on what we do and how we do and how you budget it and how we, with the budget and that we spend what we're supposed to spend and all that, we get graded, and I believe that year after year, we have exceeded expectations. We've always get a high mark, and I thank you and I thank you and your department for doing that. But just so the public knows that we follow everything that we're supposed to, because we get audited. All this is done by the state.
Yes, sir.
And I just want them to know that, you know what, every year, what did we do this year?
We get a rating of superior, which is an
Superior,
A.
which is exactly what we're supposed to be doing every year. Thank you for your leadership on that.
Thank you, sir. May I proceed?
Please.
Under the preparation phase, we do the ADA projections revenue projections, develop campus and department funding allocations, the budget instructions manual, the budget training to campuses and departments, review of campus and department staffing formulas, develop salary scenarios, and we also we balance the budget for adoption. We do have a budget instructions manual, and you do have a copy of it in paper. So if you have a hard time going to sleep tonight, you can go ahead and start looking at it.
So, and I do want to add to that, each of the campuses and departments gets this manual, so that way they know exactly how to develop their budget, what are the requirements, and how to go about putting it together so that it meets the standards that Mr. Garcia is talking about.
And in that manual, we have the district goals, the program guidelines, the per pupil program allocations, other fixed costs, required forms, staffing formula, and more budget guidelines.
And that's very important, is the staffing formulas, because it's not about, oh, let's hire 20 more people for buses or 30 people for this, but we have to find where that money's coming from. And sometimes there's not money, so if we really want to do something like that, then you go back to everything else, okay, what programs you're going to cancel to be able to fund this? Because right now, we're pretty much funded in an even area, plus the attendance is not there, so we're going to see
Really challenging,
a
yes.
challenge this year, especially this year.
And to add to that comment, as far as the challenges go, do we foresee, Ms. Ayala, as far as the state and federal funding that we get every year for our school and whatnot, are we going to see any type of percentage increase because of inflation, or they're just going to be sending the same?
At
Are
this
we, or
point in
they
time,
have
yes,
not, they
it's
have
the
not?
same, right.
Okay.
No adjustments have been made to current
Are we already looking at our budget as far as, that's the only thing that is worrying me coming this budget year? Because I know that, there's a lot of vendors that are already sending out notices and stating that they're going up 7, 8, 10%, on everything, on their costs and whatnot. I mean, are we looking already at that set formula for the budget coming, or not? I mean, I'm just asking
Yes.
and putting those questions
No,
out
that's a
there,
very
so
good
when you
question.
bring
Right.
back the budget to us, you can kind of outline, how we're going to compensate one thing with the other. I'm just worried on the inflation and the percentages and how it's going to affect our budget.
Yes, ma'am. So that is a very important question. At this point in time, we're starting with base, and then we'll move forward as we continue our discussions.
But there's a very close eye between Ms. Ayala, the superintendent, and Ms. Cortez, that they're looking at what Austin is doing, because there's a possibility that they change the funding. There's a possibility that they go back and say, oh, because of the situation, we're going to go back a year and a half and say, use these numbers, but we're not sure yet. So they're keeping a finger on the pulse. But we also got to remember our budget last year. The people that we put in Nestor with the reading, math, and all that we hired, that we put them into that budget, we got to start moving some of them back to our budget within the next 3 years, and we have a certain percentage that we want to make sure is done, because if not, 2 years from now, we'll be in a lot of trouble, and we don't want to do that. So
Right.
we need to start switching that on and find the money to do that
Yeah,
too.
and that's actually my worry as well, because yes, we have all these ESSER funding monies, and I understand that, but that's going to come to an end. And then on top of that, the worry behind that is the inflation of a lot of things that are probably going to stay like that from here on end. So I cannot firmly say that it's going to go back down. It's probably going to stay like this. And my only question is, or if you have gotten any communication where we can probably feel at ease that we're going to receive a little bit more because of the inflation costs or not. I mean, that's,
At this point in time, it's very
So
hard to
I
tell.
was going to say that per pupil allocation, it's not going to change yet. So if it's not going to.
That won't even be considered by the legislature
No.
until the spring.
Right.
Yeah.
So the only thing that we can do is you're gonna get the same pot of money. And so what they're saying is, okay, here, it's the same pot of money, and even though inflation is going on, how can you balance your budget so that it can fit aligned to
continue.
that budget of, bucket of money that they're giving you? So that means that our biggest expenditure is, staffing.
Right.
So we have to look at the number of staff, there's a formula, the number of teachers per classroom, per school, and then the program allocations that have to do with special programs. So all of that, and that's different than the regular budget if you have a special program, but in the end, you're only gonna be given this much. So we had leadership meeting, and one of the topics that we talked about was, okay, y'all, we have to get ready. How much are you spending per program, and how do we know that it's gonna fit into that bucket that we have?
Right.
So we have to be really careful, and if inflation is there, then we have to find a way to look at that 10% increase in ways that we're not ordering extra stuff, we're ordering only what we need and when we need it.
Or what I would like to see is, I guess that when we have more of the extensive budget, you know, that we look at and stuff like that, what I would like to see is where are we already thinking where the savings might be in order to compensate for that? You know, so we can at least give ourselves an idea, okay, we need to make sure that this savings is it's there, you know, it's like our personal savings. You have it there for a reason, you know?
I also would recommend, if you're not, Mike, doesn't work. I saw him, I don't know.
We don't want to hear you.
No, what I was gonna suggest is, for those that are on ESSER funds this year, that we're gonna have ESSER funds for one more year, right? Should we not consider in this next budget cycle putting at least 50% of that, of those folks on ESSER funds, so that then we can,
That's
the
what we
follow,
plan to do.
okay, all right.
That's what we plan to do for this
That
year.
was our
have that
plan
plan
from last
already.
year.
Yes, and so we already know how many people are on ESSER, so we're saying for the next school year, we're gonna migrate some of
Yeah.
those back, and then the last year, we'll migrate some
The
more
last
of
part.
those back.
Right.
And if they were extra positions that were hired for the only 3 years, we've told everyone, if yours is a temporary position, that's what it is. I'm not
Mic
talking
check.
about the
Thank
folks
you.
that were here before.
Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
May I proceed?
You can go.
Under the evaluation phase, we do the mid-year review. We also present monthly fund financial statements. We do monthly grant drawdowns, and we also prepare the audit report under the annual comprehensive financial report, which we always get an unmodified opinion. And also, we do evaluations on the campus and district improvement plan. And this is how a district improvement plan looks like. This is one of the goals, and you see the information, you see the goal, the performance objective, the evaluation sources, and the funding that goes with it. In this particular scenario, you do see that a March evaluation took place. We did miss the November. However, we at the end of the year, it must be fully evaluated. And we use the plan for learning software.
And
This-
probably the most important part is, you do have the strategy, but you've got the funding sources listed. How are you gonna pay for it?
So now I'm gonna switch over to the revenue sources. Funding for the Texas public schools comes from three main sources, which is the local school district property taxes, state funds, and federal funds. Local property taxes are based upon land and building valuations located within the school district. As presented last month, the Webb County Appraisal District appraises and values property located within our district. Then the district sets tax rates and collects property taxes based on those appraised values after various deductions and limitations that are applied. State funding, however, is based on a study of the locally appraised property values conducted by the Texas Comptroller's Office. State law requires the Comptroller's Office to study the total taxable value of property in each Texas school district as reported by the appraisal districts at least every 2 years. This property value study is intended to determine whether appraisal districts are appraising property at market value to ensure the appropriate values are used to calculate state funding. The state's Commissioner of Education uses the PVS as part of the state's funding formula to determine how much state funding our school district is eligible to receive. Funds that are appropriated by the state legislature to support education are referred to as state aid. The amount of state aid the district qualifies for is based primarily on the student head count and attendance, with other factors weighed into the calculation, such as the number of students with special needs or those who are bilingual in career and technology or economically disadvantaged. For our district, state funds represents a large portion of the overall budget. So due to the funding formulas, there is an inverse relationship between local and state funding. As local revenue rises, state funding decreases. Then we have federal funds. The federal share of total revenues for the operating fund derives from the indirect cost rate charged to federal grants and other reimbursements, especially for the SHARS programs or the MAC. So the federal funds represent the smallest portion of the overall budget.
Ms. Ayala,
Yes,
regarding
Gomez?
this election that's coming up for May the 7th on the constitutional amendments that is going to come up, is having to do with something with homestead and taxation.
it's going to be increased. Well, it passed by the voters, right?
If passed, it would benefit
Yes.
the district or not the district?
For sure. We are already working with that amount already in our projections, so we are assuming that voters will say yes.
Okay,
I would appreciate the increase in homestead.
thank you.
Yes.
I'll just-
The foundation school program has two main components, the operations funding and the facilities funding. Each component is tied to the tax effort of school districts. These components provide funding for school districts' operations and school facilities. The operations funding component of the FSP assists school districts in financing their maintenance and operations through the following two formulas or tiers. Under Tier 1 of the FSP provides school districts with a basic level of funding through several allotments. We have the regular basic allotments, special education, dyslexia, compensatory education, bilingual education, career and technology, public education grants, early education, college, career, or military readiness, teacher incentives, transportation, and new instructional facilities. So Tier 2 of the FSP is intended to supplement the basic funding provided by Tier 1. Tier 2 guarantees a specific level of funding per student in weighted average daily attendance, known as WADA, for each penny of tax effort above a school district maximum Tier 1 tax rate. I know it's kind of complex, right? Nonetheless, it does generate a lot of money, and I will provide you a sample momentarily. Then we have the facilities funding component, which provides school district with assistance for debt service payments to fund school facilities through the following two programs, which is the instructional facilities allotment and the existing debt allotment. And here, we have a sample of how those two slides are combined in how we generate state aid and our local share and the state aid share. As an example, under total Tier 1, as we calculate all of these allotments, we come out with a cost of $164.8 million. We input the district property value that was presented last month before. It was the preliminary value, but it's considered as part of the formula. We apply the tax rate under the M&O, and this will be our local collections. These collections are applied against the total cost, and then the difference the state provides. So in this sample, under Tier 1, we collect $22 million. The state provides $142.7 million. Then under Tier 2, where we have the golden and copper pennies, here we have the property value. We apply the tax rate for those golden and copper pennies. We generate $2.1 million. We subtract that amount. This is the amount that we generate under local, and the state provides $18.8 million. So under this scenario, it is the golden and copper pennies that provide additional funds. Then we have the interest and sinking. Again, we have the property value here. We apply the tax rate that we use for interest and sinking. In this case, we would have to locally pay $17.7 million, while the state will provide $15.6 million. Generally, it is higher, but on this example, I was using current figures, but because we kind of missed on the tax rate, we didn't tax as high as we needed because we didn't think we are gonna miss a lot of students. We are gonna have to increase the local share.
That amount, every year, I think we do very good at looking ahead and because we know we're gonna miss it. Most of the year, there's unforeseen circumstances that come in. And I'm wondering, just by the look, I'm just on face value here, it's gonna be about 25% that I'm seeing of the overall budget that we're gonna be missing out on. But you will get a clearer indication as to what the state is gonna do by that part of September? Okay,
Right, when we settle up during that time.
okay,
The property values have to go through a circle and then, so yes, our fiscal year ends June 30th, right? And so what we do, we begin the audit process and we start working with estimates, and then the auditor comes in and everything gets verified.
okay.
Any other questions? Anything else?
All right, thank you.
I do want to thank you all. I know it's a lot of work and it's a lot of looking into a crystal ball and see where everything's going.
Yes,
Eh.
very challenging, but I do have Edith here with me. She's the accounting and budget
Yes.
coordinator.
Yes.
And also Cristina, who's new at the job as well.
And we want to thank you all because I know it's not an easy job and I know we want everything, but at the end of the day, we can only get what we can afford. So, thank you very much. But we have a lot of, I think at the next meeting, we'll have more information on when we get the actual numbers and look what we're looking at as a district
We show the
as a whole.
projections next.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you.
Or they already know and they're not telling us. No, I'm just kidding.
We have a couple of
teasing, they're
more
teasing us.
workshops, I think. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, may I proceed, Mr. Harrison?
Please.
Item number 2, discussion and possible action to approve the updated and revised BED policy local for the district. And I know that probably Mr. Cifredo Perez can expound on this a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, a few months ago, as part of the ongoing process of updating our policies, I was asked to look at the existing BED policy. And basically what we did is we took a survey of the same policy that several similarly situated school districts had in place. These included some of the schools in the Valley, in McAllen, Edinburgh, also in Corpus Christi, San Antonio, as well as United I.S.D. After we compiled those policies, the BED policy, the local, we went and basically created or basically updated our own. We took some of the procedures, some of the policies, some of the commentary in those policies and incorporated into what we have considered today. That was then provided to staff. They provided their input, and what you have in front of you is what is being recommended to be passed.
I
We
move
think-
to approve the updated policy BED as presented to take effect immediately.
I second that.
The second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Thank you,
Next.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Item number 3, discussion and possible action on the possible extension and amendment of the superintendent's term employment contract. Possible closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071 and 551.074A1.
Motion to go into executive session.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? It's 6:02 and the board is going into executive session with our attorney. back from executive session. No action was taken. It's 6:08. What is the, you want to read that?
Do we need to, does the item need to be read again?
Item number 3, discussion and possible action on the possible extension and amendment of the superintendent's term employment contract.
I move to approve the amendments to the superintendent's term contract as proposed and discussed in closed session.
Then the second. Any comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Again? Guys have it. Thank you very much for your service and your hard work for our district.
Thank you, Raul.
Your mic's not on.
Thank you, Dr. Rios.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your vote of confidence. Again, I know that we've been through a lot of difficult and trying times and perhaps challenging times. I know that our staff here has been working very, very hard to make sure that LISD is moving forward and that is taking everything into consideration in providing opportunities for our kids. And I know that these opportunities wouldn't happen if we didn't have the support from you. So on behalf of all of our team, of our teachers and students, I do want to thank you for the support that you continuously show. There's a lot of good things to come, and all that I can pledge to you is the hard work that is exemplary for our students.
Thank you. And I think at the end of the day, I think Dr. Ramirez put it in the right way, that the district needs to know that we're 100% behind the superintendent. Regardless if we agree or disagree, at the end of the day, she runs the district. We're supporting her and will always be that backbone that she needs, or the back support that she needs when we get into difficult decisions. So thank you all for your work and hard work and guidance, and thank you for your leadership, and thank you for everything that you're doing, Mr. Perez.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.